How do you create a brand in such a tough Indian D2C market? We'll give you a rare glimpse of what happens behind closed doors.
नहीं तू ऐसे ही बता दे बहुत भारी है.
As we guide our client, Amalta's Couture, and shadow our execution and marketing heads, Yogesh and Rahul, through the entire branding and marketing process. Want to know how we do it? Hit subscribe and follow along. This is building an Indian D2C brand. We are SimplePlan Media, a branding and web design consultancy based right here in New Delhi, India. Since 2015, we've been supporting and working with brands on their 0 to 1 journey. In a marketplace full of noise, we believe in the power of simplicity. Through thoughtful design and strategic marketing, we help brands find their authentic voice in an ever-evolving marketplace. Situated at the heart of Oscar's Village, Delhi, and primarily driven by their offline store, Shruti and Santosh have been operating their brand Amalta's Couture, which designs and creates custom lehengas and traditional Indian wedding wear for women.
Hi, I'm Yogesh and I'm the execution head at SimplePlan Media.
Hi, I'm Rahul and I'm a brand consultant out here. So the Amalta's team got in touch with the business team. They provided a brief about what they want to do, and the founders were very keen to work with us. They wanted to make this work, the kind of handcrafted work they are creating, more accessible to the population. So we decided let's have a chat with the founders and see where it goes. We were blown away by the energy of the founders, Shruti and Santosh.
The initial conversation, they were like, oh, they have so much energy.
कैसे बनाना है, फन बनाना है, क्या करना है? Be us. Cool.
I was born in Oscar's Village, born and brought up. Designers was not really a thing back then, and that's where I saw intricate embroideries and the art of hand embroidery and the art of India, which was honestly not something that you would come across if you went to smaller markets like Lajpat Nagar or even a Chandni Chowk back then.
जब हम initially start कर रहे थे, हम सोचे थे let's do everything. So there was not a definite path that we were actually looking at, which is a wrong way to look at the business.
So they had a very good label, they had very good production, they had beautiful designers who were designing such beautiful designs, but they weren't able to create a business that runs across the year, which is why they wanted a sort of like a rebrand of the business, restructuring of the business. If we do a rebrand and this brand already speaks to a certain sort of set of audience, then how do we structure a new range of products? The pricing of it's too off.
It would be disorienting for the existing customers when they see one product is priced at 50,000, another 1 lakh, and then another line of products
7,000,
5,000, 7,000. If we are creating a new line that is catering to a larger population, that would conflict with the core ethos of the existing brand. So we decided that a new brand, a new D2C brand would be the best possible way to move forward with this.
Whenever a brand or an organization wants to launch a new range of products or services or something that is very different from what they have been doing, and it's different in terms of the tonality, the messaging, and how this new range of products needs to communicate with the end users, then generally a sub-brand is created so that the original brand's tonality and the messaging and the visual look and feel isn't diluted. A relevant example is Nexa. So Maruti Suzuki has been relevant in the market since so many years, and they came out with Nexa just because it was targeting a very different set of audience. They wanted to create a premium brand for the cars which people didn't resonate Maruti Suzuki with, because that was a more affordable brand for everyday audience. So that's in essence what a sub-brand is. You don't want to dilute the original brand. You want a very focused, a hyper-focused new brand. So you create a sub-brand that is a little different.
like to start off by introducing the brand we have right now, which is Amalta's Couture. We established it in 2019 and it's primarily a bridal wear brand where we are trying to bridge the gap between a Chandni Chowk and a really expensive Sabyasachi or a Manish Malhotra, which is actually not reachable for majority of women.
Initially, when we used to have discovery sessions, there used to be a lot of confusion in the minds of our customers. So we introduced another step. We now send them a questionnaire first. They fill it. They take a couple of hours. Mostly it's more than a couple of hours because our questionnaire is so long. But that's intentional.
I mean, a hell long. What big list was that? Active, passive sentences of all that question that you guys have made. But every single question that we read is also a reflection upon yourself as to what have you done about it. It is your brand, and if you can't answer those questions, then there's something lacking, right?
There are questions where we try to understand like the colors that you resonate with, the animal that you resonate with. So all these questions are just to understand the customer point of view.
During the discovery session, Yogesh and Rahul also try to understand who the end consumers are going to be. They do this by identifying the user personas of the brand.
A user persona is a group of fictional characters that mimic our ideal target audience. So whenever we are building a brand, it's for the end consumers, right? So these personas directly represent one segment of our audience that we want to build the brand for. So generally any brand has around 2-3 user personas, and what this helps us in doing is it helps us in validating the decisions that we make for the brand, understanding what the consumer's actual needs are, what the pain points are, and then this helps us in building a brand that resonates with the end consumers.
So the personas that we came up for the new brand focused on a slightly younger audience, an audience that has discerning taste, interested in experimenting, they're curious about fashion, and they also sort of appreciate what Indian handicrafts and India has to offer in terms of craftsmanship. That taken into a more modern context, I would say. So while we're calling them Gen Zs and let's say the later spectrum of the millennials, we're trying to sort of cater to people who want to experiment with fashion, people who would want to connect with a quirky, sort of unconventional, joyous brand that we're trying to build. And that's kind of what our target audience will be. In terms of demographics, it'll range from somewhere, let's say, 20 to 23-year-old. All the way to, let's say, 30 to 33-year-old.
Based on the feedback from the discovery session, the user personas, and the vision Shruti and Santosh have, the team gets straight into formulating positioning angles and the overall strategy for the brand.
When it came to the strategy, we started by deciding what the positioning angle is going to be. Considering it's a D2C brand, the marketing is something that we have to always keep in mind even during the branding process. We first came up with 3 different positioning angles that could work for a brand like this. We then sort of sat together, weighed the pros and cons for all 3 of them, and we finalized one positioning angle that was slightly more bold. It had a desi but chic angle to it. And then based on that, we sort of fleshed out the strategy. We kind of kept the overarching positioning angle in mind. That kind of informed everything that we did in the strategy, all the way from the purpose, mission, vision, to the values, to the pillars, to the personality, and of course we tied the big idea back to the positioning angle, which was desi but make it chic.
Hope you guys have reviewed the strategy. So let's just discuss the most important aspects that I can think about the brand, and maybe you can share yours too. I think one word that was coming up consistently was handmade and hand woven. So that should be an important aspect of the brand according to me.
I've gotten a brief now from Rahul and Yogesh about what the client is envisioning for this brand in terms of how it will end up looking. So now how we usually go about the art direction is we explore visual ideas on a spectrum. So the first idea that I'm thinking of is I would call the base level idea of the spectrum, where it is rooted more in tradition. We kind of look at ethnic wear as ethnic wear. We associate everything that one does with ethnic wear in terms of traditional jewelry, the settings, the colors. So that will be more traditional, more sort of grounded in what we actually perceive ethnic wear as already. The second one is slightly more sort of colorful, where we're thinking of doing things like playing with pinks and greens, colors that you usually associate with traditional wear as well, but adding a slight modern touch to it, right? We're based in Delhi. We're going to try and maximize on that opportunity, maybe take shots in places that kind of reflect that idea, that culture that Delhi has to offer. The third one, however, I'm thinking of doing something completely out of the box, and this is the one that I'm leaning towards the most. It's going to be a very rebellious take on ethnic wear. So this will be a lot more personal. This will kind of tap into the emotional side of a girl, so to say, who our target audience is going to be, and how she can take ethnic wear that is widely available, but how she can make it her own. She can kind of tap into that rebellious side of hers. She can do it according to however she wants it to be, kind of bend the rules, make it her own. So my favorite idea out of these three is obviously the most experimental one, the rebellious idea. Why? One, I don't think a lot of brands are currently doing that. Two, it'll give us room to play with colors that one doesn't necessarily associate with ethnic wear as of now. Considering it's more emotion driven, it'll tap into that sort of emotional side of the women who are looking to do something different and they're bored of what's already in the market.
The design team then explores multiple perspectives for the art direction, translating the creative brief into 3 distinct visual approaches. Each concept defines key elements like imagery, typography, color palette, and graphical styles, shaping the brand's identity across platforms. These first drafts take shape under Gurbani's guidance, evolving through initial revisions before reaching Yogesh and Rahul for a feedback round. Now, it's up to them to select the art direction that best aligns with the brand strategy and the client's vision.
It's been a very long week, and I think we are finally done with the art directions that could be presented. And after multiple rounds of our discussion and Gurbani's take and the team's take, I think we have landed at a place where I feel sort of confident. I'm satisfied that we are presenting 3 unique directions. So even if none of them are selected, we will at least know what the client is thinking and what sort of direction do we head into.
I think it's the most important aspect at this point of time, because we want to move forward quickly. So getting their feedback on what they are thinking, what kind of visual directions they are leaning towards would be very helpful in speeding up the project.
Yeah, I think so. So fingers crossed, but let's talk about the art directions. The first one is my personal favorite. I think this art direction encapsulates traditional heritage with a sort of a modern feel to it. But again, each art direction, it also has its pros and its cons. I think the biggest pro is that we are in Delhi. In Delhi, there are so many monuments and it has a very rich cultural impact throughout Delhi. I think it works in our favor because the brand will look like a Delhi first brand. So that's a big pro for me at least. I also think that the serif fonts, when paired with a traditional sort of a heritage look, it does give a modern appeal to what we're trying to inculcate. But on the other hand, this sort of an approach is heavily used by a lot of Indian brands and especially ethnic wear brands.
The only apprehension that I also have is that this looks like every other brand.
Yeah.
The kind of color tones, imagery that we want to go towards, it's very common nowadays. So hard to stand out.
Since the look and feel will be very minimal, very traditional and very elite, if the copy stands out, I think that would be a unique angle in itself. And another problem that I see with this direction, which is difficult to scale in future, would be that I think taking permissions from ASI in Delhi would be a challenge, because you can't just simply pick up your camera and shoot at these different monuments. So that will also be a ongoing challenge that we'll face. But let's see. If they approve, then we'll think about these things. I would say I don't love this one for sure. I'm not a big fan.
Couple of good elements that I can see, like the play with the lotus sort of a motif that we are using, these kind of patterns that we've created. But the overall expression of the brand seems a bit more on the negative end, like it doesn't communicate happiness or excitement, which I think isn't right for this sort of a brand.
The pros of this direction is there is a very rich blend of different cultures infused into a sort of like a rebel outlook, which our brand is definitely about. Very vibrant colors of pinks and greens, and the imagery is very loud. It's almost like it's on your face. So these are the things that kind of can work in the favor. But again, some of these things can also become negative, that it can look a little religious, leaning towards one religion more than the other. Creating a brand that looks a little religious, it's certainly not a direction I would take. So that's my only apprehension.
Perhaps with a better imagery,
Yeah.
this can be elevated. Yeah, but certainly not a big fan right now.
I would let you talk about this one because this one is your favorite.
Yes, I like this one the most because as per our brand positioning, I think this is the one that nails the briefs down, because it is bold, disruptive, and these were some of the terms that we talked about in our last session with the client. So all those are encapsulated very beautifully in this. So the use of dark red hues, overlapping images combined with traditional photography. The kind of motifs that we are using again bring in that cultural element back, and with the copy and the typography, we can again reinforce the bold and disruptive angle that we want to go towards.
I quite like the little queen that they have used. Like these kind of illustrations can definitely go with the brand. I'm not 100% sold on a pomegranate on a woman like cutting out the images, so I don't know if I'm a big fan of that. I just feel the cons of this direction is it's a little too bold. It's a little too chaotic, and that's the only apprehension. It's too dark. Like I would love to create a brand like this, but I don't think our clothes would be like this.
This is too out there.
Yeah.
No one is doing this. So again, there is always risk attached to doing things that no one else is doing. But again, then it also gives you a chance to stand out. Its pros and cons are both the same, essentially. So let's see which one the client likes,
Yeah.
and then we can move forward.
Yeah, earthy tones because everybody is using. I don't want to use earthy tones. I don't want heritage. No.
So what color would you want? White is one, black is one. Okay.
वो देंगे।
अच्छा पेस्टल्स ही हो पाएगा, उसके अलावा तो और क्या? ग्रीन्स में
पेस्टल्स कर लो,
ग्रीन्स में खेल सकते हैं।
कर लो पेस्टल्स, प्लीज पेस्टल्स कर लो। हमारी majority collection, I'm telling you, 99% collection, it's going to be for summer season.
So इसमें
थोड़ा dark है, ये पूरा theme dark है. This theme is not light for sure. I love the craziness, but I do not like dark theme.
You're okay with the yellow oranges?
Yellows are good, orange. हाँ, yellow का पूरा palette is okay.
So should we use the following words to create an art direction? Vibrant, summary, playful.
Summary, yes, definitely.
Playful.
Playful, yes. Vibrant सिर्फ वही वाले जो थोड़े cool हैं.
ठीक है.
Cool है, breathable है.
So the worst fears, I would say, they kind of came true, in a sense that the client did not like any direction that we were proposing.
That's why art directions are so important, because initially they talked about having a bold and disruptive brand, but when they actually saw the art directions, they were leaning towards playful side. So when they were saying they want to be bold, They actually wanted to be a bit more playful.
A little more playful, vibrant, summery. These are some of the key terms that they were using, because again, like Delhi is like 80% of the times it's summer, so we have to optimize for that. The second one, no one really liked. We mutually agree. It's too risky for a brand like this to follow, so same page. The first art direction, the one which was my favorite, the heritage and cultural look, I think it was too safe, and it still is too safe. So the overall sentiment was that there is no differentiation with other brands, which I think is sort of true, because there is only so much differentiation that you can do with intelligent copy.
Right, and with the third one, they felt it was too bold, too disruptive, too chaotic, so that was a big problem.
So currently we're on a spectrum. One of our art direction is extremely safe, one is too bold. So we ideally need to be somewhere in the middle in this spectrum.
And since we have very limited time, we'll try to improvise on both of these, and we'll try another direction which aligns more with the insights that we gathered in this discussion. So with the first one, we'll try to add some pastels because they wanted to explore the directions. So instead of scrapping it and starting from scratch, we'll just try to play around with different colors.
I think the third one will die down though. If we do the exploration on the third one, on this spectrum, if we tweak it, it'll die down. So I think it loses its complete value because it's built on the dark tones and the reds and the gothic vibe to it.
Yeah, highly unlikely it would work.
Yeah.
But since we are strapped for time, we need to be creative with the limited time and resources we have. And I think the third direction is the new direction that we want to explore, is the one that we should emphasize on. Make it more vibrant. Maybe add some floral elements to it. That is something we can explore, more summery.
Vibe to it. Yeah, makes sense.
To better understand the initial process of naming a brand, we turn to Gurbani as she begins the process, not by forcing a label, but by trying to understand who this brand wants to be.
So now that the positioning and strategy has been locked in, we're going to work on two things simultaneously. One is going to be the art direction, and one is going to be the brand name. So now when it comes to the brand name, we usually first come up with categories that we can explore. In this case, our first category is going to be the parent name and how we can inspire the sub-brand's name from the parent company's name. The second could be something that's more emotion driven, something that the audience is more likely to resonate with. And the third could be, let's say in this case, something that directly aligns with what the positioning is going to be, right? So now these three categories are also further broken down into different approaches, right? And through these different approaches, we come up with around 15 to 20 names for each different category, right? So we could try translation, we could try combination words. There's a bunch of different ways that we go about it. So now, for example, if we take the parent name, Amalta's is a tree. The first direction we will explore is around trees and flowers. Flowers also because florals are something that we're exploring in the visual side of things now. Another direction we will go in will be more emotional, like I said, where we could go with adjectives, we could go with names that kind of have certain connotations that evoke a certain kind of emotion in our audience, in this case the women that we're going to be targeting. And the third one will be slightly more straightforward, where we're going to directly see what works with our positioning angle, which is desi but make it chic. And once we have a list of names, we usually start with about 100, 150 names. Then we start sort of eliminating them based on what sounds right. Because for a name to be a good name, it doesn't have to work just objectively. It needs to sound right. It needs to sort of have the right connotation. And of course, we need to check for trademark.
With the brief realigned and the direction reset, it's finally time to bring the work back to the table. The design team has spent the last few days building out the new art directions, one that softens the edges but still holds the spirit of the original.
At think we have reached a good conclusion. We wanted to update the first art direction, make it a little more vibrant and a little more fun overall. And the latest direction, this is the best this direction could have gone. We have added a lot more pastel colors overall, but it is a little more fun and vibrant now. It does dilute down the initial architectural and the modern feel that there was, but I think this is a good direction to present, I would say.
Coming to this third art direction that we originally worked on, that was the bold and disruptive one.
When we tried to make it a little less bold, as predicted, it did not work out. It was losing its essence entirely. So instead of like playing around too much with the third one, we went ahead, we did a new direction.
So with the updated brief that we gave to the team, where we talked about being a little more playful, because when the client said bold, they actually meant playful, vibrant. So this is what the team actually brought into forefront. So they focused on using very bright colors, and the main part that the team has used is they've used a lot of floral elements. And again, from a marketing perspective, it's highly scalable. We can create a lot of marketing campaigns around the floral elements itself. It can be used on social media, on the website, for cover images. So the amount of room that we have to play around with this art direction is a lot.
I think this is the strongest direction that we have had so far in the project. It is by far the most scalable. You mentioned marketing, but it's scalable in terms of the little things like the thank you card can have like the floral elements. Right. These safety pins can have a floral element, and we can hang this to the tags of the product. We can give away these hair ties as freebies or goodies to our customers. Another interesting aspect about this could be that we could like launch specific flower based collections in future if the client aligns with how we are imagining this brand to be. So it could be a, I don't know, some summer flower like a tulip collection that goes out.
Like people do seasonal collections, we can do flower based collections. And it also ties very nicely with the parent brand Amaltas, because again Amaltas is a tree, and since we are now choosing a floral direction, it very closely aligns with what their core essence and roots are all about.
This could help us in pitching this direction and making it work.
So when we start the brand naming process, a couple of things that we look out for is that it should be easy to pronounce. It shouldn't have more than 3 syllables. And again, it should roll off the tongue easily, should sound good. And the most important factor is it should align with the core brand strategy, what we want to communicate, and resonate with the end target audience.
It's a difficult deliverable in a sense because clients have their own personal biases, which is why we have to always keep them in check, because again, we're building a brand for a specific audience, right? In our case, we're building this brand for Gen Zs and millennials. It needs to be a name that works for both these audience without alienating any one of them. So generally the team comes up with 100, 200 names internally when they start this process, and now we're down to the 7 names that we're all aligned with. So the first name that we have is Gul. This is a safe name according to me. Gul also ties in with the floral direction that we are taking for the brand.
Yeah, it's short, easy to pronounce. So those are the good qualities, and again ties back nicely to the floral art direction we want to go ahead with. The only downside is I feel it has a sort of a mellow or a sort of a sad connotation with it, which is against the playful brand that we are trying to build.
The next one is Mastani, which has that playful angle to it. So it essentially means joyful. This name can also work, but it sounds a little how do I put it? It sounds a little 1980s to me.
It captures the essence of the brand, but again, it seems a bit tacky.
Yeah. So the next one that we have in contention is Vari, which isn't really a contention for me personally.
I can just think of sad songs when I hear Vari, so not a big fan of this.
The next one is Sharmili. This has to be the name. I think there is no other name that fits the brand as perfectly as Sharmili, which in Indian context it means shy or someone who's shy. So it's ironic that our brand will be very bold and playful and joyous, and the name would be Sharmili.
Juxtaposition that we can use to solidify our brand positioning. I think this name has the strongest appeal to that. So now this is one of my favorite. Earlier it was Mastani, now it's Sharmili for sure.
The next one is Champa, which is interesting to me. Why it's interesting? Because again, this also has a very 1980s or old school feel to it, but it seems a little more retro. It seems a little more fun in a sense, because again, there is a flower element associated with Champa.
The only apprehension that I have is it's a little bit too old school.
Yeah.
And goes against the brand that we're trying to build. Yeah, but overall a fun name to say.
The next one is Zamrood. I don't have a lot of opinion on it because again, not one of my personal favorites. But yeah, this can also go. It has a luxury connotation associated with it, so it can work. And the last and the least is Amasa. Yeah, I not my personal favorite for sure.
Definitely on the elegant side, but again feels very sad for some reason.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
Again, it's important to understand that all of the opinions that we're sharing right now are our personal biases also. These names have been handpicked for a particular TG, and it needs to work with that particular TG. Some of these names are more attuned to older, like the late 30s audience, and some of these names might be a little better for the early 30s and late 20s.
This is more of a collective team effort.
Yeah.
So that again, we have different perspectives involved, and we do not impose our biases to the client.
So we'll revisit where we left off from. Art directions we had explored. You gave your initial feedback.
The first one that we presented you was along the lines of heritage and architecture.
इसको हमने अपडेट करा है ऐसे, थोड़ा कलरफुल प्लेफुल बनाया है इसको, तो वही प्रेजेंटेड है यहाँ पे. We don't like how it has turned out to become, because the luxury element जो उसका वो था, the entire play was कि भाई बहुत स्टैंडर्ड है बट कॉपी बहुत अलग हो सकती है, यूनिक हो सकती है, डिस्टिंक्ट हो सकती है. इसके अंदर अब वो न्यूट्रलाइज हो रहा है. We came up with a concept based upon the original brief when you shared that you like flowers and all of that. So uske basis pe we have
Created this foolproof concept where we've played around a lot with flowers.
So we prefer bold. So with fool also, with flowers also, we wanted to go with a bolder direction rather than a safe, joyous, happy direction se zyada. We wanted to be bolder. Okay. So this is a mixture of bold and vibrancy. तो इसके अंदर अब एलिमेंट्स हमने फूल वाले बहुत ओवरली यूज करें, बिकॉज दैट विल बी द डिफरेंशिएटिंग फैक्टर बिटवीन अदर ब्रांड्स. नाउ फ्लावर्स कैन बी यूज्ड इन वेरियस डिफरेंट फॉर्म्स. जैसे जो टैग्स होंगे, नेम टैग्स में हम ऐसी पिन्स बना सकते हैं, ये हमारे वो कार्ड्स हो सकते हैं, द पैकेजिंग एक्सपीरियंस वी वांटेड टू गिव. सो दिस डायरेक्शन इज मोर डायनामिक अकॉर्डिंग टू अस. द फोटोज आर अगेन बोल्ड वाले एंगल पे ही अभी भी. कि सबसे लो, लाइक ईजीएस्ट इम्प्लीमेंटेशन कुड बी समथिंग लाइक दिस, ये भी कूल लगेगा. एंड द मोर कॉम्प्लिकेटेड वंस कुड बी लाइक दिस, जिसके अंदर ये स्टैम्प वाला फील आ रहा है. ये दिस कुड बी लाइक, वी कुड शो दिस एज अ लाइक आवर थ्रेड वर्क दैट वी डू.
So from a marketing point of view, this also aligns very well with our brand. And फिर वही अमलतास वाला एंगल भी आता है, अमलतास पेड़. Then we have a sub brand that's around flowers.
हाँ, तो ये है मोटा मोटा thoughts. What are you preferring? What are you thinking?
Oh, I love this one. I love the vibrancy.
Satisfied with what
Yeah, absolutely.
This is in terms, you thought scalable from your end, because I'm thinking of how can I scale it from my end. So packaging, I'm getting a lot of ideas. People put crushed flowers.
Yeah.
Crushed flowers, right? And that thing can be put as a sticker for the butter paper.
Yeah, 100%.
You open it.
Meanwhile, Yogesh and Rahul have already discussed potential names with the client. And one name that seems to be standing out for them is Sharmili. Shruti and Santosh suggested another alternative, Not So Sharmili. Both these names capture just the right tone, bold, unconventional, and rooted in culture. But it's the final art direction that would help us decide which one would be the best option for our sub-brand.
If you're okay with this, this can't work with Not So Sharmi.
You're right with what you're saying. Matlab, haan, doesn't work. Not so Sharmili is not going.
But then you have to stick to Sharmili, not do for versions of not Sharmili.
So the essence that we initially wanted to capture based on the initial brief was Ghanta Sharmili. That was the exact term that we want to capture.
नहीं कोई और का ऑप्शन नहीं है.
चंपा फंपा ही होगा क्योंकि वो फूल भी होता है चंपा. फूल के साथ तो चंपा ही चल सकता है.
Like it did not grow on me.
गुल है लेकिन that is too boring.
सब बोरिंग है.
शर्मीली के सामने कोई नाम अब चल मतलब मेरे हिसाब से तो मुश्किल निकलेगा कोई और.
पसंद ही नहीं आएगा.
शर्मीली. हाँ.
अगर शर्मीली रखोगे तो फिर एक एक क्रिएटिव एक एक में दिखना चाहिए वो. मतलब हर एक में एविडेंट होना चाहिए. आई एम नॉट सेइंग बाय कॉपी बाय इमेज या जो भी कर रहे हैं.
Getting Sharmili approved was a little tricky than originally how I thought it would turn out. But again, the good thing is the art direction they absolutely loved. The name was a little tricky to get approved.
They had the same apprehension with Sharmili. They didn't want to get associated with that term.
Yeah.
So they were proposing Not So Sharmili. What we actually want to show through the design, through the products itself. So they liked it in the first go itself. Dekhte hi they were like it's very nice.
Sharmili is a very long name, but we'll figure something out. We don't have to do just.
Sharmili is a long name you're saying. Is one of the concerns. Domain क्या होगा बाबा? Shopsharmili.com है वो.
हाँ, Sharmili का लेबल है, where Sharmili है, Sharmili by Maltaz है.
इससे अच्छा not Sharmili सही नहीं है.
We cannot kill the irony by talking about it, no?
तो sharmili.in मिल जाएगा शायद मेरे हिसाब से फिर. .com तो मुश्किल मिलेगा. Hey sharmili.com भी हो सकता है भाई.
Hello.
ज़्यादा हो गया सर.
Thank you.
Good morning, Sharmili.
Good morning Sharmili.
Are we doing SHARMILLI?
No. EELI.
EELI.
Yeah.
हम इसको हिंदी में भी करने वाले हैं क्या?
लोगों में तो yes.
Again, even if we do the Hindi logo, it needs to be an extension of the brand, according to me at least. I would like a version of the logo to be Indianized, but ऐसा नहीं करना, सिर्फ हिंदी logo बना दिया.
Gurbani and her designers now begin exploring the earliest forms of the brand, sketching, scribbling, and shaping Sharmili's identity from the ground up.
The art direction and the strategy are now locked in, which will bring us to the next step, which is the logo design, a very exciting step in the entire process. We have gotten the brief now. One, of course, will be to follow the art direction. Going a little rogue on the flowers is what I'm thinking right now. But other than that, we have to be following keywords and the other sort of traits that the brand has, which is it's handcrafted, it's still ethnic wear, it has that desi vibe to it. But how we will be making this unique is by making it sort of playing on the unconventional and the experimental and the modern side of the brand. We have a bunch of ideas because we're still in the initial sort of sketching stage. So one angle that we'll be playing with is how one of the letters can perhaps have some element, maybe a needle, maybe a thread, maybe the flower in some way, shape or form. So one idea we're really liking is eyes, because eyes are one of the main ways you kind of express yourself other than words. So we're thinking winks, we're thinking, maybe express it through the eyebrows, maybe something like that, and how the flower can kind of play into that idea. Yeah, that's what we're at after the brief. So yeah, I'm also excited to see what it kind of turns into next.
So the first round of iterations are hand-drawn sketches, and we do this because it helps in making the creative juices flow. So this is a good exercise that we always begin with. Yeah, now we have some concepts that we can go over.
Yeah, interesting ones too. So I quite like the sensor feel to it. Again, we have a bold, playful brand. It's a floral brand. So flowers as sensors is, it sounds interesting to me because we can do it with different words now, not just the logo. We can use it during the marketing collaterals in a lot of different places. So this stands out to me. I think this eye wink is interesting because again it highlights that Sharmili, the shyness, in a very juxtapositioned manner where it's a winking eye.
Yeah, the idea is there, but I'm not sure how feasible it is to execute it in the real world.
Yeah.
Because this would be an unbalanced logo for sure. This is something that I think closely relates with the brand, since we are called Sharmili, and Sharam is something that is generally seen in the eye. So pretty good mixture of what we are trying to do. So having a lot of floral elements, that is what we want to be doing, and we want to convey the Sharam angle to it.
The execution seems to be a little tricky because it's a illustration heavy logo, and our logo needs to be simple because it needs to be scalable.
Another concept is Sharmili written in Hindi, and now we are inverting the M part. So it's a combination of Hindi and English, and the M is represented by an inverted flower.
Yeah.
Interesting concept. Again, we'll have to see how do we pull this off.
A couple of people came up with the cutout element because again we're not Sharmili as a brand. So the cutout does feel very natural to the brand.
You only suggested this.
Yeah, I think as soon as I thought about Sharmili, I was like, it could be Sharmili with a cutout in the middle. But interestingly, these guys have gone for just cutting out Sharam. Again, could be interesting. Let's see.
When I heard it, it felt interesting, but now when I see it,
Yeah,
it doesn't look that great.
Agreed. Then there is this one with a leaf and a English sort of a version where half of the logo is Hindi and half is English. Again, on paper, I don't quite like how it's implemented right now, but I see a version in future where it's a half mixture of Hindi and English because it can feel like a Desi brand. So I would definitely like to explore something with Hindi and English. But again, I have a major conflict that most people that we are targeting, they can't really read Hindi that well in India. I'm one of those people. Yeah, that's the only apprehension I have. So finally, we have these 6 concepts that we have shortlisted.
After reviewing the initial concepts, it's clear the direction is close, but we are not quite there yet. The core intent is intact, but the form still needs finishing. Gurbani and her team head back to the drawing board, this time with sharper feedback and clearer guardrails. Because now it's not about exploring possibilities, it's about arriving at the version of Sharmili that feels just right.
So we're just exploring Hindi fonts to see what kind of weight works, what kind of formation, do we need something sharper, do we need soft rounded fonts. We're also kind of exploring what style of flower we will be using right now. Will it be slightly more 3D? Will it be a flat flower? Where will the eye fit in? So this was one idea that we came up with. We're playing with the ease again. Maybe you'll have a flower, maybe you'll have a leaf. So we're kind of playing with eyes instead of the ease as well to see if that can work. We're not there yet, clearly. This one looks stoned. But yeah, we're kind of figuring that out. Here we have the censored version where we're kind of playing with the flower as like an asterisk or a censor icon. Here we're using a flower in the M and the M of the word to see how it can look. Yeah, so that's what we have right now. Those are the ideas we're exploring. I'm really leaning towards the idea of having a flower with an eye inside of it because I think the two factors that we're trying to solve for, one, the floral idea from the art direction, and second, the irony of Sharmili coming through the logo itself. Those two angles can kind of be tackled through this concept.
We had to complete these logos like a couple of days ago. but we weren't reaching a final point.
And again, since we are running out of time now, our core focus is to just align in one direction so that we can focus on that direction only.
For the initial concepts, I think we are at a decent enough place, yeah?
Yeah, let's start with the first one.
I'm calling it the Trippy Eye officially.
It conveys the core emotions that we want to communicate with the logo, and actually this might be a little easier to again show to the client and tell what the team is thinking. Because if we go with the core logo, and sometimes it's hard for them to see how it can be represented in different forms in the future.
It can be expanded into various different flowers for various different seasons. It can have different colors, so the possibilities are endless. It can have an English version, Hindi version, so this one is a very strong concept according to me. Yeah, I know this is an illustration right now. We'll have to definitely fine tune this. The next one is the M1, where we have inverted it. Yeah, I think now that we have finished this one, I'm opening up to this one. As a concept, again, this can also work in Hindi, also in English. The M is kind of visible. To make it more visible, we'll have to explore more. That is something that we can do if the client also likes this direction.
We want alignment, that's what we are going after, because the Hindi version doesn't really look very nice. It doesn't represent the brand that we are building. But from a concept point of view, what we want to communicate, it encapsulates that.
The third one is the sensor one. So now we have reached a good point with the sensor one. Again, is it the strongest one now when I look at all of them? Probably not, but it is a lot more balanced. Yeah, we had to use it at just two places. That is a compromise we had to make, otherwise the word wasn't readable. If they like this concept, then I think we can explore the flowers a lot. This flower is okay for now, I think.
And again, I think it has lost its essence of the sensor thing that we want to talk about, since we also want to introduce the flower in the logo. It now looks a mixture of starfish and a flower. So yeah, I understand what the team wants to communicate, but in the long run, I'm not sure how feasible or how good this might look like.
The last one is a very exploratory sort of a concept. It's very raw with this butterfly and the eyes. It fulfills a lot of different criteria. It's a very interesting motif for the brand. In essence, like these four concepts will be taken to the client next. We'll be talking to them about what direction do they feel is right according to them as well. Projects which are as extensive as Sharmili, we take concepts to the clients so that we can then fully invest time into exploration of those specific concepts. Because if we continue to iterate and refine and take it to a finish line, then ideally this process would take weeks of time. The timeline is an issue, the budget is an issue, this project needs to run fast. So yeah, I think these are good concepts to take to the client in the first version.
So we had to go and have the complete logo presentation with the client directly tomorrow. But turns out that our account manager has already sent the logo concepts to them. So they like one, which is a good sign. But we still want to have a discussion with them to understand how do we take this ahead.
सीधा दे दो हम लोगों को, फिर हम एक्सप्लेन करने लगते हैं हम क्या सोच रहे हैं. ये तुम देख चुके हो सारा डॉक्यूमेंट
multiple times. Like the first one.
Like the first one, this is what you're leaning towards. What do you like in words?
I feel that the eye and the juxtaposition that you have tried to portray, it's coming out really well. So Sharmili along with this eye, where I feel जो अभी मेरे को दिख रहा है उसमें तो I feel कि it's giving that coy look to me. So I believe that इसका recall बहुत अच्छा है. So as soon as I saw it, मेरे को ये जहाँ दिखेगा I will remember it. हिंदी वाला I'm just not sure. I know you like it, but I personally am not sure. Maybe क्योंकि मेरे को उतनी हिंदी अब आती ही नहीं है.
So that's the thing. That is why we didn't explore Hindi only concepts, because that is also something that we identified कि Hindi पढ़ने में बहुत सारे लोगों को नहीं आएगी समझ. तो अगर हिंदी कॉन्सेप्ट होगा भी तो उसके अंदर इंग्लिश इन्फ्यूज्ड होगा and it will be interchangeable. So this, even if we use it like this, it will also have an English variation for sure.
But I love this flower. I love this flower and I love that eye inside it. And I feel like this brand is talking to me.
Like recall would be amazing. Just the eye has to improve a bit. Like you leaving it to the person that probably it is not, probably the lady is high. Right? तो नशीली आंखें भी पोर्ट्रे कर रही हैं. थोड़ा ज़्यादा zoom in करके देखो तो लग रहा है हाँ शर्मीली है. वैसे ये bigger logo, then I see because of the eyelashes, then it's giving me that look. From afar, it's only the eye. So नशीली आंखें ज़्यादा लग रही है शर्मीली से.
Concept of Sharmili and using an eye along with it, क्योंकि शर्माना is something that's more expressed by your face expressions and especially the eye. तो I think जो नाम के साथ भी जा रहा है plus जो हमारा brand language है, जो हमारा theme है, I think it's going really well with it.
And now that the logo concepts have been approved, it's time for Shiv and Gurbani to make necessary adjustments to the concepts and turn it into a final logo.
So we had sent some options for the logo to the client, and the one that we were hoping for has been finalized. But the struggle kind of starts from here, because while the concept is really strong, both the elements, the eye and the flower, we still have to figure out how we will turn that current icon into a logo that is sort of scalable, that will work in all places. So we have three things that we have to figure out. One, will it be a flat 2D logo? We had to figure out. Second, how will the eye look? Where will the eyelashes go? What will the sort of layers of the eyes be? The third thing we had to figure out was the petals and how, of course, ultimately all of this will come together, right? So we went through multiple rounds of iterations to figure out how this can be a strong and scalable logo. We explored how the division between the petals will be, how many petals there will be in the flower, because while the brand has a maximal sort of aesthetic, the logo cannot be chaotic. It needs to be clean, it needs to be simple. We figured out ultimately that we want to play with a 5-petal flower, and I think after 4 to 5 rounds, we finally hit the nail on the mark, and we have a logo, a 5-petal pink flower with an eye in the middle. Yeah, it's going to be a sassy eye and a clean flower. That's what we're going with ultimately.
Unlike what most people think, your brand identity isn't just your logo. It's your brand story, how you communicate, what you communicate, and the look and feel of the brand. Basically, it's the whole personality of your brand. So let's take Amul as an example. They have an iconic little girl as their mascot. And they have a witty and humorous tone, which they use to talk about current events. This has helped them stay culturally relevant for a longer period of time. This is how great brand identities are built. And in a world of D2C, where there is no physical interaction, your brand identity is the strongest lever you have to build a long-lasting emotional connection with the consumers.
So now that the logo has been locked in, now it's time for the identity. So with the Indian D2C angle that we have here, we have to kind of keep in mind all the places, the end user, other stakeholders, everybody, right? Where all we'll be kind of interacting with them. So we'll be working on things like packaging, things like accessories, things like posters, and all kinds of other standard collaterals that can come into play when you create an identity. So we have a flower, a 2D flower, and we have an eye inside the flower, which will kind of form the base of everything that we will design. You know, kind of look into things like there's seasons in fashion, right? So maybe we'll kind of tap into that. So we have 3 things that we'll keep in mind. It has to be multicolored. It has to have a maximalist approach. It needs to also expand on our idea of the flower power that we're kind of playing on with this identity. So we're thinking multiple flowers with the same form but slightly different shapes, different colors. We're thinking of how the eye can kind of play into different things. Maybe we'll have an eye that winks at you. Maybe we'll have sort of elements around the eye that kind of play into the idea of the irony that the name also has. And yeah, that's where we are with the identity.
Now that the brand identity is ready to take form, the pieces begin to fall into place. Building off the strategy, tech and art direction developed back in episode 2, Gurbani and Shiv begin the next phase, translating vision into visuals. Now that the identity is ready, it begins to extend into something more tactile, the packaging.
The first one, they have used checkered boxes a lot, and it's extending into multiple colors for different seasons, which can be used as different seasons or different collections.
And in this version, the team has played with seasonal box grids. We've used a lot of quirky patterns as well.
So it's quite fascinating because it gives a retro sort of like a mithai ka dabba look. Like a lot of sweet shops in India use this sort of pattern.
I'm not sure how I feel about the checkered boxes.
When we keep the designs very clean and minimal, generally the longevity of a design is more. So that's a sort of a con that I can foresee.
Right, and again, with the seasonal variation, one of the disadvantage might be that we won't be able to build that brand recall that comes through consistency.
Let's show it to the clients once. But I'm quite satisfied where we've landed with this sort of packaging. So the best part about this is that this one has identity expansion right into it. So we have explored with icons a lot, and we have expanded the floral identity into different type of flowers per season and how they can play out. A 3-petal layout, a 5-petal layout, a 8-petal layout, the eye tape that is present, that they have come up with, the open eye and the close eye. The side mein hi aankhon mein ishara ho gaya, like these little subtle elements that they have put on the boxes. I quite like a lot of them also. This is a little more on the extreme end, which means it's more maximalist, but I think it goes with the brand because inherently our brand in general is a maximalist brand. We are not doing minimal things.
Yeah, I think this one hits the mark. And probably we can take the seasonal part from the first version and experiment in the second one as well. Since our packaging design is so vibrant, one of the challenges that we might come across is during the printing stage, because it's always a hassle to get all the colors right. But this is one we want to take because we want to stand out in the market.
So the experience that we want to deliver for the end consumers is we want a box that feels unique to the end consumers.
Right, so operation wise this would be a challenge, but again, in order to provide the complete customer experience, this is something that we feel is essential for this sort of a brand.
Now that we have all the elements locked in, we have also created an additional deck which kind of encapsulates everything that we have done so far with the identity. We can just quickly revisit to make sure that we're all on the same page of how this brand has shaped up. Last time when we met, we brought together 4 or 5 different directions of how our logo or our branding can take shape. So you selected the first option. So now we have actually refined it. So the logo is finalized based upon a grid that we created for the flowers. It's a symmetrical 5-petal pink flower with our winking eye in place of the bud of the flower. We went with a clean style with the logo so that the eye could be the focal point. Now there are different versions of this logo that we can use at different places. So there is a Hindi version of the logo. We can use it interchangeably along with the animation or motion. So that's the horizontal version. And then we also have a vertical version at places where we can use the vertical logo. So we have shortlisted primary and secondary colors for the brand. you'll see a lot of yellows, greens, pinks, purples and blues that come out to give a very fun, joyful yet edgy look and feel. So with each seasons, our logo color marks can also change. So that's also baked right into the identity. The color balances, we have figured out the 2 color balance, the 3 color balance along with the 4 color balance. Along with that, another very crucial part of the identity is the typography. For the typography, we have chosen Stadio Now Deva. Its form has elements like the edges that give a subtle nod to the daciness, but it still looks modern and overall a very cool looking font, I would say. And now coming to some graphical elements. So we have 2 major visual principles. One is the bloom that represents the different flowers that we're using in the identity. And then we have maximalism, which is very important for our brand. We will visit the packaging for the first time. So narrative 1 packaging का है, rebellious, playful and distinct. इसके अंदर we have played on grids and patterns. Okay. So we are using seasonal box grids, जिसके अंदर spring के लिए ये grid है, autumn के लिए ये grid है, summer के लिए अलग है, winter के लिए अलग है. Because that's how the complete identity will be formed. It can change with different seasons. And this is how the packaging might or will look in this sort of a thing. And now we can use this as a different set of packaging, that as a different set of packaging. But lively, maximal and unapologetic, this is what we like. इसके अंदर जो iconography है वो petals के अराउंड है. सीजन के हिसाब से पेटल चेंज हो सकती है. उसमें शेप पे था, इसमें पेटल्स पे 3 पेटल, 4 पेटल, 5 पेटल and 8 पेटल. ठीक है. इसका आइडेंटिटी सिस्टम कुछ ऐसा बनेगा जिसके अंदर our petals are expanding with different seasons. Sexy. And this is how the packaging will look like. Sexy. An example of ये है वो अलग-अलग petals, how it might look. Again, interesting point about this packaging is like different sides of the packaging can have like different lines in future also. For now, we have used आँखों में इशारा हो गया, but in future we could have culturally relevant lines also. Yeah, अब इसके बाद हम collaterals देखेंगे थोड़े से. Name tags ऐसे हो सकते हैं. 2 options हैं name tags के. Again, a lot of floral elements with the ऊपर से tag of the flower. Papers could be like this. ऐसा एक पेपर हो सकता है, आँख वाला पेपर हो सकता है, सिंपल नॉर्मल पेपर हो सकता है, पेपर बैग ऐसा कुछ हो सकता है, लगेगा ऐसा कुछ, और थैंक यू गॉड ऐसा कुछ. And we also went a step further. We experimented with some scarves, a measuring tape, and some patterns from our identity are used in these elements also. Again, these are the kind of freebies that we can give along with the packaging to our end consumers. बस अभी तक इतने तक ही पहुँचे हैं.
Website is one of the most important aspects for any D2C brand. This is where most of the brands are made or they break.
And it becomes even more important for a D2C brand because again, there is no local store. Every purchasing decision that is made by the end consumer, it happens on that storefront. So in a sense, whatever we have done until now, it all boils down to our website being great and it needs to function to convert our customers.
And we achieve this through our process-driven approach where we first start with the user personas. So if you remember in the second episode, we talked about user personas. When we are building a website, we go a step further. We move on to something called as persona mapping. For our ideal users, we explore what their pain points are, what information would they be looking for when they land on the website, and what are some of the opportunities that we have to bring them closer to our brand.
So the user journey needs to be convenient, it needs to be simple, it needs to be clean for the end users to navigate the website as we want them to navigate the website. So whatever apprehensions that the user might have on the website and whatever pain points they might have from the website, our job essentially during the user experience phase is to make sure that we tackle all those pain points through our user journey, right?
And this is achieved through something we call as information architecture. So you can think of it as a detailed sitemap which has all the pages, how they are connected to each other, and what information we'll be covering on each of these pages. With the user journey locked in, then we move on to the wireframes phase.
The wireframe lays out a structure in in how we want the user journey to enact on the actual website. The purpose of the wireframe is very linear. You don't spend a lot of time into the finesse and the design details and the branding elements. You only focus on the users and defining the structure, what is right for them.
And since wireframes are devoid of any colors, images, it's easy for us to be hyper focused on the experience side of things.
When the user journey is entirely mapped out through the information architecture and then the wireframes, then we go on to something we call as stylescapes. We skipped this step again to save time because this project was very short in time. So we took out elements from the art direction directly and started with something known as the UI, the user interface of the project.
Welcome to the world of UI, where form meets function and the brand finally starts to look like itself.
Adding the copy in the UI itself is very crucial for the complete brand alignment. The end result of a UI phase essentially is that we have a pictorial view of how the website will actually look. So this pictorial look and feel is very essential for us to get an approval from the client also, if they're also envisioning the brand like we are envisioning the brand. And once an approval is set, only then it is handed over to the development, because changing details after the development is done is too time consuming. So that's a step that we added into the UI phase. Now with the UI, everything gets logged in, the final copy, the final images, and developers can simply focus on doing what they are best at, which is coding.
With the UI designed and the brand's voice defined, it's time to turn static screens into a functional, high-performing website. This is where the code takes over, where every layout, button, and interaction is brought to life. From choosing the right platform to setting up shipping, payments, and backend operations, every decision impacts how the brand performs, scales, and sells. Now it's time for the development team to step in and for the founders to make a few key choices that will shape Sharmili's digital storefront from the ground up.
So with development, the first important question that comes to mind is, what technology do we build this website on? And there are thousands of different technologies and platforms out there in the market. But since it's a D2C brand and we have to build it really quick, there are only a few credible options that we can really choose from. There is the industry leader Shopify, there is WooCommerce, or there is another alternate route that we build everything from scratch. Since we are short on time, building a custom website from scratch on a heavy technology like Node or React is out of the question, because that takes months and months to develop. So the options that we are left with are Squarespace, Shopify, or WooCommerce. And the winner is pretty evident. It has to be Shopify. This is because of the ease of use and the community of apps that is already baked into the Shopify ecosystem. We can plug in, play a lot of different apps for a lot of different features. So it makes the development process a lot more faster. Since we are building a custom designed website, we can't use any pre-existing themes. So we'll have to custom code it on Shopify. The advantages of a platform like Shopify will be immense for our customers, for the ease of management of the orders, as well as a easy to use dashboard system that Shopify gives in. Now, when we talk about Sharmili specifically, when women are ordering the clothes, they expect these clothes to be delivered as soon as possible. So shipping gateway integration becomes a very key aspect when we're choosing a platform. And the three choices that we have are ShipRocket, eCart, and delivery. And the best possible solution is delivery, which I'm not sure will be applicable for. But again, that's something that the client will figure out what the delivery partner will be. The second important aspect would be cash on delivery, which is very prominent in a country like India, along with WhatsApp integration, because people want to receive updates of where the package is, which can be integrated with apps like AI Sensi. With the platform now figured out, the next step is to just get right into development, where our tech team will be taking the UI designs and will be building this website on Shopify directly. This process is very unique for each different project, but in Sharmili's case, we now get into a sprint cycle of 3 to 4 weeks, where a team will be allocated to code this website, and after 4 weeks we'll get to see the first version of the website where we'll start adding all the products and the images.
With the development choices made and the website complete, it's finally live, at least on staging. But before Sharmili opens its digital doors to the world, there's one critical phase left: quality assurance. This is where every page, every click, and every product listing is tested, reviewed, and refined. We loop back to the UI and content teams, checking if the design has translated correctly, if the copy sits well, and if every button behaves the way it should. It's not just about fixing bugs, it's about seeing the site through the eyes of end consumer. Because first impressions matter, and this one needs to be flawless.
So it's extremely important to have a solid QA process before you launch the brand or your website. Before diving deeper into the QA process, let's look at the kind of errors that we generally face. So one of the errors is manual issues, problems that arise because of mistakes by the development team. In Sharmili, there was a problem that we came across. So there's one of the section called Why You Love It on the product development page, and for some reason the descriptions were not matching for some of the products, and we found out that the field was mapped out incorrectly, and that was because the development team felt that this section contains the same content that the other pages also have. But being proactive about these things help you identify them earlier in the process and solve for it before the website goes live. And another is the system limitations itself. In our case, this is Shopify. So in Shopify, it has a very clunky sign-up, sign-in process. The return order process is very tedious. So unless you install external apps like GoQuick, Shopflow, even ShipRocket has a feature to streamline the login process. So knowing the limitations of Shopify or the system you are working with helps you prepare for them accordingly, and then you can install these apps and test them if they are performing as intended or not. So how we solve for the QA challenges. The development team performs unit testing at every step. Once all the pages have been developed, the QA team performs a complete integration testing. We have a checklist for our QA team to ensure that all the marketing automations and analytics is in place. So this generally consists of making sure that the website has Google Analytics setup, Microsoft Clarity, Google Tag Manager, Metapixel and Conversion API. So it allows you to view the heat map. It allows you to view the user's recordings. You can add pop-ups on the website. So all these features are important in order to perform conversion optimization tests on the website, which ultimately leads to increase in the conversion rate.
So honestly, we went with a really small budget to these guys for the website. I mean, we asked these guys to work around it, try to do something in our budget, and I think the final deliverable, the final website came out amazing. It's such a clean website, such clean fonts, and I think the Sharmili essence came out so well.
When you go onto the website, you could be very comfortable in seeing as to what the website has to offer. However, it also gave you the vibe of being very comfortable, very desi but chic kind of angle also.
It's just amazing, the kind of brand that we are trying to build. Everything is visible on that website. There's nothing missing. The entire user experience, the user interface, I think both, they've come together so well. Fab guys.
With the website ready and the final pieces in place, Sharmili is no longer an idea in progress. It's a brand ready to meet the world. Bold, playful, unapologetic.
Launch day, finally.
Our aim was to show the brand to the people who built it.
We finally are celebrating the launch of Sharmili.
Yay!
Yeah. Everything turned out to be perfectly as SimplePlan and we planned together, and it's come out beautifully.
And by the way, we've got our entire team. Shiv has been part of our branding, so the logo that you see has been done by Shiv.
Oh, Shiv.
Oh, Shiv!
Shiv is the guy.
Then Himanshu has been working on the designs. He has been working on the art direction. Gurbani, you know.
No, I don't know who's Gurbani.
So she has worked on the entire creative direction of the project. Then Anshul, he has been building the website. So everything that you see on Shopify.
website guy.
So he has built that. Pura experience website ka, the user experience and the journey has been mapped out by Kushagra. So he's been doing that.
Great.
It has a lot of fruits.
Even I don't drink.
Oh my god, isn't it the best fucking cake you ever had?
Yes.
I baked it. With my own hands.
No.
Godspeed.
हमने तो खा लिया भाई.
All the uphill from here.
You know, it's easy to talk about numbers and campaigns, but one thing that doesn't get talked about is the sheer amount of heart that goes into build something like this. And again, this project was filled with a lot of challenges. Starting from the get-go, we had a budget constraint that we needed to operate under.
Which basically also meant a very short and strict timeline that we have to stick to.
Building a brand is hard, but documenting a series and showing the world how a brand is built is a different ball game altogether.
Along with running the brand building process, we had to make sure that the cameras are always set up for client meetings. When we're having internal meetings, we record some of them. Because stories like this, they are rarely told in real time, and clearly like we couldn't find a relevant asset for the Indian context. If you want to build an Indian brand or an Indian D2C brand, on how to launch a brand in India. On that note, I would like to really give a shout out to the entire production crew. Let us know in the comments of what you would like to see more of. Is it content, is it websites, is it marketing or design? We'll be happy to create more content around the agency sort of life and what happens behind closed doors when you're building a brand. And if you have been following us since so long, please make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon while you're at it. And I guess that's it for now. Yeah. Ciao. Bye-bye. Peace.
See you soon.
यार चुप हो जाओ, ये सब मत बोलो।
ये बंदा तो कुछ हो बीमार हो गया?
नहीं सही है यार.
Just get me through a good understanding of
That's what she says.
पहले लड़ लो अपने सिर फोड़ लो एक दूसरे के साथ.
सुनने तो वाले नहीं हो तुम लोग.
बटर मिल्क डालते हैं.
Come back to building an Indian D2C brand.
Leading towards
Basically, it takes a lot of time.